Alright, so this video will be the video covering the exercises part of Chapter 3. So Chapter 3 was all about the second declension, apposition and nouns, word order, so subject, object, verb, and a little bit further into that, generally the subject is first, plus modifiers, indirect object, direct object, adverbs, verbs, right? So that's the general order. Aside from that, we learned a couple more vocab words, mainly with masculine endings because we're focused on the second declension, but we'll see both the first one come up in these examples too. So let's get right into it. So it's a little out of order here. I did it, I think, in terms of difficulty or sliding scale here. So with number 2. So I've given you the vocab words on the side here just to remind yourself. That way you don't have to look them up, but feel free to look them up. You should look them up if you don't know them, to build that muscle memory of using your dictionary and also to internalize them yourself. So let's look at the sentence, and just as we did in the chapter 2 video, we'll do the SAT process, right? So instantly I'm drawn towards the verb all the way at the end of the sentence, vocant. If we go look that up in the dictionary, we'd see it comes from voco vocare, to call or to summon by name. Start at the beginning, like we just said in the sentence. Generally it's subject, indirect object if you have one, direct object, adverbs, verb. And I'll point that out in this one. Aside from the indirect object, we follow that exact order in this. In this example here. And you'll see that that's the case, because like we said, this is the common way that Latin is structured. Not always, but mostly. So, same deal. Let's do the SAT process on it. So we have the verb here, vocant. We know from voco vocare that it's a first conjugation verb. I'll bring up your verb chart here. So we drop the RE and we add an ending to get present tense, which is the only tense we know right now, I believe. So we have vocant, so we add that NT. So what does that mean? That means that this is plural, first of all. Third person. Present. Active indicative. But the main things are here. Perfect. Hodie, we know, is an adverb. Just looked it up in the dictionary. It means today. There's only one verb in the sentence, so we know which verb it's modified. So we can move on to the nouns. So we have pueri and poelas. Pueri, puer, boy. So that means it comes from second declension. So if you look in your second column there, you'll see that you have a couple options. We can guess that it's the subject since it's the first, but you also have the option of it being genitive singular. So nominative plural, genitive singular. We're going to guess nominative plural for now and see if it works out. The other indication that we have that it's plural is that we have a plural verb, right? So lastly, we have puelas. Comes from puella, first declension. The only ending in the first declension that has as is accusative plural. So what is it? Accusative plural. Accusative plural. And I'll give you the gender, but all right. So we know our subject. We now know our direct object because that's an accusative, right? Direct object. The case is accusative for that sentence role. And we have everything. So we start with who the actor is. The actor in this case is the thing in nominative, which means that we start with the boys. Or boys. So the boys, what were they doing? The boys are calling, are calling, summoning, ringing up on the telephone. When? Or they're calling the girls, right? They're the director. They're calling the girls. And throw in our adverb there, wherever it fits best. Today. Easy, right? Fantastic. Let's keep moving on. So, again, I gave you the vocab. But this is number 6. So, very similar. We'll go a little faster through this. Amat is your verb. Fortuna is a noun. Viros is a noun. And manos is going to be your adjective. Your clue here, gender, number, case, agreement. And a lot of the time that means they'll end the same, so it's a good indication that they agree. In this case, that will be true. So we have viros and manos, that os ending was common to both. So fortuna, it's just a nominative, singular, feminine word. Fortune or luck. Let's see if that matches up with our verb. Amat, amo, amare, to love. Amat, that T ending, shows us that it's third person. Singular. And present. So, he, she, it loves. Lastly, who's the one being receiving the loving? Well, that's whatever's an accusative. And the only noun we have left is viros. We know it comes from vir, viri, man. That's second declension. Does that match up? We look at our second declension, those two charts. Viros, that's accusative plural. And that matches up to me. So that is accusative plural masculine. So how do we translate that? Well, we translate that. Fortune, nominative, right? Fortuna, fortune. Does what? Loves men, right? And not just men, but manos men. It loves great men, right? So not only is that accusative plural masculine, but this, due to gender, number, case, agreement, is accusative plural masculine. Loves great men. Perfect. Another quick one. This one will have a little bit more of a trip up. So, like we said, subject, indirect object, direct object, adverb, verb form. Okay? That's typical of what we get. We have the same verb at the end. We have a noun, and another noun. Alright? So we might have to do some digging here. Safe to guess our first one is going to be nominative. And if we look, agricola, that matches up. So, very simple. Nominative. Singular. And it's actually masculine. Special noun. But it's actually masculine, the special noun. But it does take first declension endings. That's an exception. Ask your teacher for more. There are a couple words in Latin that have that exception. The other two are first declension, but they do not. They are feminine. They don't have that exception. So we have filiabus, which comes from filia, daughter, and petuniam, which comes from petunia, money or wealth. So let's see what their role in the sentence is. So let's start with petuniam, because I think you'll see that the am, the m endings will be more familiar. It comes from the first declension. So we can look at our chart in the bottom left there. First declension, am ending, right? We know that's accusative singular. Perfect. We were looking for a direct object, and we've just now found it. Right? So that is the receiver of dot. Speaking of dot, what is dot? It comes from do, dare. It's a little bit of an irregular noun, verb, but in terms of how it's completely brought up, but it's also third person singular present. So he, she, it gives. Who's our he, she, it? It's Agricola, the farmer. So lastly, you'll see this with verbs of giving, or sparing, or giving mercy. Intransitive verbs like this, they will often, you will often either see the actual direct object taking the dative, or a dative indirect object accompanying it. And that second one is what we have here. So like I said, the general order is subject, indirect object, direct object. In this sentence we have subject, direct object, and there's our indirect object. So, and then we can check on this. So filiabus, philia, you looked in the bottom left there, in that first declension, you'll see that abus is your option for dative plural, right? Filiabus. Nothing huge there. Perfect. So, dative plural, feminine. So let's put it all together. Start with our subject. The farmer. He did what? He gives. Is giving. Gives what? He gives the daughter? No, he gives money. And we translate the indirect object as what? That's 2 or 4. And I think in this case 2 will get you better. To the daughters, to his daughters. Right, because it's plural, not just a daughter, but daughters. All right. So last one here, that I've picked out, is a little more involved, but nonetheless similar. Now, get rid of this chart for you here. So if we just do our SAT process, it's kind of going to have to be in 2 parts here. You can see by these commas, we kind of have natural dividers in this sentence. So let's start with the first half, first third. We have Valette, Ira, and C. C is a conjunction. So I'll just go ahead and write that. Shouldn't really change. If will always start that sentence. So Ira comes to Ira, Iri. It's not a singular. There's no macron. Right. This Ira is not a singular. There's no macron on it. There's no macron in our sentence. So what does that mean? That means, well, we're not a singular. To check is where we are in the sentence. We're near the beginning. So if Ira valet, coming from valio valare, to prevail, cut off the re, add the t. That shows us that very similar. We're third person singular present. So we can go ahead and write this out, right? We're done with this part of the translation. If anger, rage. I believe you saw the interjection O in the earlier chapter here. It just is interjecting here, so I'm just going to translate it straight as, "Oh, my sons." All right, so the second half, we actually have 2 verbs going on here with a conjunction in the middle. So look at what this sap is. And I'll work backwards from that. So if we were just to look up saipe, right? We don't know what that word is. We try to find in the dictionary and we'll see that it's just an adverb. It means often, like how often, or I go to the store often. Aramis comes from era orare. It means to err, to wander, to be astray. And so we can go ahead and do that one, right? We don't have anything else going on. The ad kind of divides us here. So Aramis, unfortunately, isn't just third person. We thought it was, everything so far has been third person, but it's actually first person plural present, right? And that comes, you can see that on your verb chart. Your verb chart here. So we cut off the RE and we add the mus. So there you go. Your first person plural present. So we, not I, not you, not he, she, it. We error, we wander. Right. So we often, right, that's our adverb. We often error, make mistakes. I'm gonna say error. Et and Damus, and we had Aramis, so that's a good clue that we're still first person plural present, right? So we are still the subject of the sentence, we. This translation here is a little idiomatic. It doesn't mean to give penalties out, it means to pay the penalty. You just have to get familiar with that one, but yes, so we give penalties, you'd actually translate it as, and we are often err and pay the price, pay the punishments. I'm gonna say prices. Technically, price would sound better in English. Prices. So if we let our anger prevail over us, we often make mistakes, and we pay the prices for those mistakes. So, true advice, right? So that's everything for the exercises for this chapter. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Got to see a little bit of a conditional statement, our first one here. Also, the first use of an indirect object, and a couple new verbs, new vocabulary to incorporate.